So we covered referrals and we covered employers. These two are lead getters for your business who do the core four on your behalf to get you more leads. And both of those do it without you doing anything, which is wonderful, or doing significantly less than you would be if you're doing it on your own. The next and third party here is agencies. And I bring this up because when I was really thinking through like, okay, well, what other ways could someone go get leads? It's like, well, you could hire an agency to go get you leads on your behalf. And I've actually had a lot of success with agencies, not in the way that most people think. And so I'm going to outline how I've used agencies in my career and hopefully provide some value to you. So cover a quick story, how agencies want you to think they work, hiring versus do it yourself, how I use agencies, how to pick the right agency, and then next steps. All right? Rock and roll. So quick story. So in the early days, this is my dog Chuck. Anyways, I was trying to learn how to do something more advanced in marketing. And so I learned enough to run ads for my local gym, but I still didn't feel like I knew enough to like run national ads and things like that. And so I reached out to some friends, was like, hey, do you know any agencies? And so people set me up with some agency owners and they pitched me their services. And honestly, all of them were like super expensive for me at the time. And so I couldn't afford to risk like $5,000 a month or $7,000 a month. One guy was $10,000 a month. I was like, I just can't afford to do that. And so on my third or fourth call, a guy that I got on with was a solo guy. And I said, hey, do you think you could just show me how to do this? And he said, well, I don't sell my time. And I remember saying, this is America. I was like, everything's for sale. And I was like, what would it take to make it worth it for you? And I could tell like he had this grin that he was gonna like skin me alive on this, but he was like, it would have to be like $750 an hour. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And so I actually got this agency owner to, instead of running the ads for me, to show me how he would run my ads so that I could learn some of these more advanced. I didn't know how to do retargeting and pixels and all this stuff, and I wanted to learn. And so I said, just to be clear, I want you to look over my shoulder and show me how to do it, but I'm gonna use the mouse. And if we change something, I want to understand the decision-making process that you're using or why we're changing it and why you waited, why you didn't do it, why you did it. He's like, yeah, that's fine. He said, it's your money, man. We can do whatever you want in the hour. I was like, okay. And so every week for the next 8 weeks, I hopped on, I recorded the calls, and I would take notes, and I would do all the homework, and every week I got better. And by week 6, I knew everything that he was doing, and I didn't need him. And I did 2 more weeks after that just to make sure. And after that, I stopped working with him because he had transferred the skill to me. And so I learned how to do ads at a more advanced level from an agency owner. And this was actually a pretty positive experience for me. And that one lesson cost me whatever 750 times 8 is. So whatever, $6,000-ish, I think, hopefully. And it was one of the highest return investments I've ever made because I've made millions using that skill that he taught me. And so what I'll break down is how agencies want you to think they work and how I've used them over time, all right? So over the next few years, I started using more and more agencies because I had a good experience the first time. But each experience I did after that was actually really bad. And I was like, this is weird. And so what I realized was that they have a different way that they want you to think they work. So they are lead-getting service businesses, just to give you a definition. You pay them to run ads, do outreach, or package and distribute content. That's what advertising agencies do, okay? And so typically, they will onboard you as a customer. You will get results because they put the best guy on your account. And then they will switch to a junior rep who will give you poor results. And then they pop the senior rep back in to try and like manage a little bit. And then eventually, you cancel. And I rode that ride a bunch of times. So starts off good. I learned some stuff from the onboarding, which may or may not be valuable. They assign a senior guy. I get some results. Then they transfer him to another new account. They bring a junior guy in. That guy tanks my results. I say, hey, I want Johnny back. And then Johnny comes back and he fixes a little bit, but he's still spread between that and the other account, so he doesn't pay full attention. And then eventually I cancel and I say, hey, you know what sounds fun? Signing up for another agency. And around we go. And I've done that ride a lot of times and I want you to avoid it, okay? So that's how they want you to think they work. So there's different ways of doing this. So you can obviously just not do an agency or do an agency. I recommend if you have no money that you're gonna have to do it yourself, so you don't need to worry about it. But if you do have money, then an agency can be a viable route, but if you do it a different way. And so I'm gonna show you how I use agencies today. So I use agencies when I wanna learn a new method or a new platform. So if you recall from earlier, I said there are times you do new, right? In the beginning, you do new placements, and then there's new platforms, and then there's new methods. So I use agencies when I want to do something new. And I do that because the risk of me messing it up is super high. And oftentimes they know a lot of the basics that I don't know. And they can apply them or contextualize them to my business. So my learning curve's a lot faster. And because they're agencies, they usually want to generate results for me quickly. And they can speed up my speed to results more than I can on trial and error. And for me, the cost of that time is worth it. And so the action step, if you do have enough money, is that you can go and find a good agency and you can start poking around. And if you follow the rest of the steps in this chapter, you'll make it all back and then some. And the way I'm going to show you how to do it is very different than you've probably ever heard before. All right? So here's how I use agencies. So I get on the call and I like to set very clear expectations because once I thought back, I was like, why did that other thing work so well? It was because I set really clear expectations and I actually used the agency services in a different way than originally intended. And the reason that I like agencies as teachers is because they have to be good. A lot of the teachers in the world aren't actually that good at teaching because it's been so long since they've done it, right? But the agencies are usually good enough that they have enough people who ask them to do the stuff that they actually can teach the skill. And they're doing the stuff that's working right now because their whole business kind of depends on it. So in a lot of ways, they are better at doing it, but they just don't have the structure built for teaching. And that's where this offer comes in. And so this is what I say basically verbatim. I said, I want to do what you do in my business, but I don't know how. I'd like to work with you for 6 months so I can learn how you do it. Plus, I'll pay extra for you to break down why you make the decisions you do and the steps you take to make them. Then, after I get a good idea of how it all works, I'll start training my team on it. And once they can do it well enough, I'd like to change to a lower cost consulting agreement. This way you can still help us if we run into problems. Are you opposed to doing this? The thing is that if you set the expectation up front of what you want to do, and you're very clear about it, and you also offer to pay them more for the fact that it's inconvenient for them, then believe it or not, a lot of people will take you up on this offer. And if one person doesn't, another person will. And that has been my experience. And I've done this with virtually every vendor I've done since I discovered this. And so the action step for you is, if you do have the money and you do decide to use an agency, I would recommend using this service model rather than the traditional one, which is completely hands-off done for you. I would like them to do it with me because they're going to get results sooner. And then usually when that senior rep comes in or moves off to the other account, by the time that guy moves off the account, I should be good enough that I can actually start keeping those same results rather than having them plummet, because I'll have learned the processes and thinking that they apply to my business. And so when you find an agency, set the terms with them and the deadlines for yourself. And I like the deadlines mostly for my own team internally, not for them, because it just gets us to driving, because otherwise you get kind of lazy and dependent on them. And so I like to keep it in-house and say we have to get off by month 6. And to be very clear here, there will be a period where you're paying both your team and the agency at the same time. So you're paying extra. But in my opinion, I still think that the cost of ignorance, of not knowing how to do the new platform or the new method over a longer period of time outweighs the short-term cost of double pay. Again, this is how I use them because I have means. If you don't have means, then I think you just have to do it yourself in the beginning, all right? And I just want to say really clearly that feel okay with negotiating a bit to make this work. It's normal to negotiate, and if people don't want to do it, that's fine. You just ask somebody else. Not a big deal, okay? So yes, there is a place for agencies, because I know I'm going to get this question, and there's zillions of agencies and marketers who follow my stuff. So to be clear, I own equity in agency software, which is Allen, okay? So I'm not against agencies. I just share how I've had success with them. And there are massive companies that use huge ads agencies. Sure, of course there are. But they're not who I'm really writing this for, all right? For most people, spending $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 on an agency is a significant cost. So this is how I've gotten the best return from working with them. Also, some people never want to learn, and for those people, agencies are great. I personally always want to learn, which is why I use agencies this way. So if you're like, okay, I understand how they want you to work and why it doesn't work as well, how I can make the decision of doing it myself or hiring them to do it, and I understand that if I'm going to hire them to do it, I might want to consider using these terms if I want to learn and I want to bring it in-house eventually. And I understand that this is predominantly targeted for small to mid-sized business owners. Okay, great. So how do I pick the right agency? Glad you asked. So lots of agencies are going to say, pick me, right? And so here's my list of things that I look for in an agency. So number one is that I want somebody I know who got good results working with them. So word of mouth, ding, 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 ring a bell. This is where it comes in again. So I say, hey, anybody know who's really good at insert, like Pinterest ads? If I want to learn Pinterest ads, that's what I, hey, do you know anybody who runs a lot of Hulu ads? And I ask my network. Some people will get back to me. And I'll be like, cool, great. Now I have a short list of people. 2, prominent companies got good results working with them. So I may not know the companies personally, but if I recognize them, that's a pretty good sign, right? Number 3, a waiting list. This one I like a lot, to be real with you. When demand for service exceeds the supply, they're probably pretty good. And the best agencies grow off word of mouth, just like the best everythings. A lot of times, a really good agency, a really good high service business, like a high touch business model, usually the constraint for them is operational scale. And so for them, if you see lots of these ads that are running from like little dudes, they're usually not very good. And I don't say that to insult or poke, I'm just saying my experience with this, all right? Take it for what it will. Number 4, a clear sales process that makes a point to set realistic expectations. So I love it when I say, hey, so we could expect this, and they're like, no, this is what it looks like realistic. We hope we can get that, but this is what we feel confident committing to. I love it when someone just sets clear expectations and then meets them. It's great. Same thing that all the 6 checkpoint list that we said in terms of getting referrals, if they use those things on you, they have a clear onboarding process, they have clear qualifications for what types of customers they sell to, they set a dream outcome that seems reasonable for me, they get results quickly, they communicate well, they tell me what they want me to ultimately get into in terms of buying next. Like, these are all signs that they have a legit business owner who's running this. They run a tight ship. And agencies are very big operation machines. And so you need good operators. If you have bad operators in the beginning, you're gonna have bad operators on the end, all right? Number 5, no short-term hacks. This is a big one, all right? They keep the talk on long-term strategy, and they also give clear timelines for setup, scaling, and results. What I mean by that is there are some agencies who are obsessed with pure algorithms things. So I'll give you an example in like the content distribution space. If someone is obsessed with hitting viral content, then they're not gonna be looking after my brand. And so if they're like, man, we can get you all these viral videos, et cetera, I'm not optimizing for viral videos. I'm optimizing for strongest brand. And so you wanna make sure that what they are set up for is what you ultimately want. Now, if you just want a brand that doesn't really exist but just get lots of eyeballs, then that might be a good fit for you. But again, making sure that you're very clear that what they say they do and what you really want are actually aligned. Number 6 is they tell me exactly what they need from me, when they need it, and how they're going to use it. All right, again, a lot of this is clear expectations and clear communication. But if these are gonna be integrated as part of your business, you want that. Number 7, they suggest, this is key, they suggest a regular schedule of meetings and offer several ways to update me on their progress. If I get no communication from them, how do I know they're doing anything? Now, they might be, but if they're not communicating it with me, then how am I gonna know? If they suggest a meeting cadence rather than zero, oh yeah, most of our customers don't wanna talk to us. It's like, that's not true. Of course we wanna talk to you. We wanna know what's going on. If you're in charge of marketing for a component of my business, of course I wanna know what's going on. I wanna meet just like I would if you were inside of my business. Number 8, they give updates in simple terms and have clear ways to track so I know the cost compared to the results. That's it. This is our invoice. This is what we achieved this month. This is how many impressions we got. This is how many likes and engagement, et cetera. I want to see clear metrics. That's all I'm asking for. All right. Number 9, I think, they make a good offer. So they follow the exact same offer framework from $100 million offers. So dream outcome is what they promise what I want. Perceived likelihood of achievement. How many other people like me have they gotten what I want? Time delay. How long is it going to take? Effort and sacrifice. What do they require me to do when working with them? What will I have to give up? Can I stick with that for a long enough period of time to see the results? Right? These are all the questions you have to ask. Because like, there are some people who might say, I need you to do all this stuff. And if they make that demand and you can't meet it, then you should not work with them. Because both of you will be upset. And that's not good. Right? And then finally, and this might be an interesting sticking one, they're expensive. All good agencies are expensive that I have found. But not all expensive agencies are good. So talk with as many as it takes and use this list to find the good ones. And if an agency checks those boxes, they're often worth considering. So here's a little pro tip for you. Talk to more agencies to become a better customer. So being an informed customer helps everyone. So before you buy, get informed. Talk to 5 or 10 agencies, learn how they work. At first, you'll learn a bunch of new stuff. But over time, the difference between the better ones and the worst ones will become really obvious. Now you can make an informed decision. And if the agency doesn't meet my needs, but I like the people, I'll ask them to refer me to another agency. And that's a really key point. There are sometimes I find an agency that I really like, but they just don't do something that I really want. Those are some of the best referrals. As I say, is there anyone who's as good as you at this over here? And oftentimes they're like, I've got a buddy Dan who'll take care of you and he's really solid. I've gotten a lot of really good agency contacts from this. So good agency offering one specialty will send you to other good agencies who offer the thing you want. And those are some of my favorite referrals. So here's the action step. Even if an agency agrees to your terms, talk with a few more before you make a decision. Compare them using the checklist above, and then pick the one that works best for you. And realize none of them are going to be perfect, but you will be better off than you were if you did nothing, often on a much faster timeline. Which for me, I trade money to pay down my ignorance tax as fast as possible so I can learn these new platforms, learn these new methods as fast as I can. And I think you should too. Next steps. 1, decide if an agency makes sense for you right now. 2, talk to a lot of agencies to get a feel for the market. Don't be cheap. 3, use the agreement framework that I outlined. 4, set a clear deadline to force you and your team to learn the skills. 5, use both teams until your team beats their team regularly. And then 6, switch the discounted consulting until you feel like you're teaching them instead of them teaching you. And then once you feel like you've surpassed them, then cut them loose. And then that is how I use agencies. And that's how agencies have gotten me leads and allowed me to get into new platforms, new media types, new methods faster than I otherwise would. And that's how I got more leads with them.